3. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this panel discussion on the Art in the Cloud. Art in the Cloud is an online and offline event and of Arts Electronica Festival 2021, Garden Hong Kong. This event includes 3 parts. Part 1 is the online exhibition, which is now on Arts Electronica Festival website and Garden Hong Kong website. The second part, we have 4 online panel discussion, and today is the last one. Part 3, Art in the Cloud, is one of the program of Garden Hong Kong exhibition, a physical exhibition at Osage Gallery in Hong Kong. This discussion will be recorded. If you don't want to be recorded, please turn off your video. Today, the topic of the discussion is At the Edge of Reality. I am Mac, the creator, with the support of my colleagues, Lisa Park Soo-young, Charlie Ip, and Sophie Jiang. And this event, Art in the Cloud, is chaired by Maurice Benayoun, the pioneer media artist worldwide, and the professor at the School of Creative Media, City University of Hong Kong. I would like to take this chance to thank for the support of Neurodesign Lab, ASIM, that is the Center of Applied Computing and Interactive Media, School of Creative Media, City University of Hong Kong, Osage Art Foundation. The inspiration of Art in the Cloud comes from the idea of virtual art space. Virtual art space is not a new concept. It has been explored for more than 20 years, but the development has not been well recognized until the COVID-19. In the past 18 months, it almost becomes the only solution to rebuild the human connection and receive high attention. I would say this is a miracle. But what does this miracle tell us? That is, it proves that this is a situation that everyone has been waiting for, and this moment has appeared now. Today is the last day of the discussion. We are happy to have Elke to be our moderator. Elke is a German media artist, scholar, researcher, and now the associate professor of the School of Creative Media, City University of Hong Kong. To know more about Elke, again, please visit our website, hkgardens.com. Now, may I pass the time to Elke and our speakers.
Yeah, thank you very much, Anne, for the kind introduction. And I'm really excited today to be moderator in this panel. And we have 6 really interesting international artists who work, as the title is suggesting, at the edge of reality between digital and real, physical objects or Well, you will see more when we start with our presentations. I first would like to invite all the artists to briefly introduce themselves. And I would like to start with Theodora Barra. And
Hi, everyone. So first, I would like to say hello to all the speakers, and I'm very happy to be with you this morning for me. I also thank the audience for joining us, and also would like to thank Anne Mank for the invitation. I was in residency in Hong Kong a few months ago, and I'm very happy to be back, even if it's virtually. So I'm Theodora Barra. I'm a French visual artist, but I'm currently in Rome at Villa Médicis for a year residency. Briefly, I studied in Nantes School of Arts in Manchester and at the Frénois. And I'm currently working on a practice-based PhD dealing with the imprints of the nuclear research in the southwest desert of the United States. My artistic approach combines film, video, installation, sculpture, photography, even performance sometimes. I work on the permeabilities between these different media, and I like bringing narration to one and volume to the other. I'm interested in mutating environments in those like ultimate moments when the artificial landscape becomes a sign. I examine figures of modernity and dissect them in order to question our future, maybe. My work is becoming more and more documentary. It usually starts with field trips or field survey that allow me to have a proper overview. And after that, I built a more depth relationship and connection with the selected place. Yeah, that's all.
Yes, thank you very much for your introduction. And we move now from Europe here to Hong Kong, and Kathy Fan will introduce herself.
Yes, let me share my screen. Can you all hear? Can you all hear well and see the screen?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
But this is now only the brief introduction.
Yeah, I try to show you some photos so you can briefly know what I've been doing. So hello, I'm Katie Fan, and thank you for having me today. And I'm a curator and creative producer working across the field of film, digital art, culture, and technology. And my goals are to activate new generations of creative talent, cultivate cross-disciplinary collaborations, build collective forces, and create impactful experience for the audiences. And so currently I'm the festival director of IFEA, Short Film and Media Arts Festival organized by the Hong Kong Arts Centre. My role is to lead the artistic direction of the IFEA by curating its annual festival and competition, exhibitions, film screenings, education programs for the young people and ethnic minority youth, also international collaboration and artist development opportunities. And since 2016, we launched a series of outdoor activity called IFEA Everywhere. We organize open-air cinema, poolside screening, and large-scale media art carnival in a public space, offer audience-free and fun activities in an unconventional setting and a more approachable way. We work with artists, filmmakers, animators to discover new artistic practice outside gallery and theater. Apart from my work with IFEA, I'm also the co-founder of Artware Curatorial Initiative and co-curate the recurring media art exhibition Cinema 2.0 with the chief curator Yip Yuk Yu since 2010. Another project that I'm recently working on is a VR dance film experience called Chroma 11. It has been selected by the Venice Film Festival as the first Hong Kong team got accepted into the Biennial College Cinema VR, and we expected to complete it in the first quarter of next year. So that's something about me, and I will share the project later. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I think that was a really good, engaging introduction. And we move now further on the globe down to Australia. And Jonathan Kemp will introduce himself, please.
Hi there. I hope you can hear me. I'm a British artist based in Australia now. I've been working in media arts for the last 15 or 20 years. I've been attempting to understand new media technologies in relation to computation and the Earth, the physical Earth, and by examining aspects or making extensions from both current technologies or past media technologies. hopefully in both a playful yet a critical way. So I'm very aware of that new media art, while presenting new experiences, also often replicates and recirculates narratives and concepts and even the materials and techniques of older communication technologies. So I often take a materialist perspective in the stuff I produce, looking more at the matter of media. But I also think about the ways in which ideas about imaginary or speculative uses of media can puncture any narrative positivism around technology, whether online or offline. So I've done projects looking at the effects of the Earth's natural electric currents on brains, and long-term projects with others on what's called psychogeophysics, which extends the idea of psychogeography to embrace geophysics, looking at the Earth's physical and spectral properties and how they interact with local ecologies, including humans. Finally, I'm a lecturer and researcher in the conservation of cultural heritage at the University of Melbourne. That's why I'm in Melbourne, and I lead practical workshops on preserving both old and new art forms, from stone to hard drives. That's it for me until a bit later. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And I think your backdrop already adds a lot to your research interest and your creative work. So now this is the advantage of meeting here online. We can really travel now to the other end of the globe, where it's now already evening. And Alexei Marfin, if you please would be so kind to introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you. Can you guys hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Alexei, and greetings from Los Angeles, where it's nearly midnight. So thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm a film director, and originally I'm from Russia, but I grew up in UK, and now I'm based in Los Angeles for nearly the past decade, and also work a lot in Hong Kong. Today I'm going to present a VR film called Kowloon Forest, which we premiered at Osage Gallery, and since then it toured different festivals. It won the best VR at Vancouver Film Festival. And my background actually is from architecture. So I studied architecture at university. Then I became interested in designing worlds, not for the real world, but for film. So I worked as a visual effects artist, for movies, commercials, before going into directing my own films and moving to Los Angeles. So that's a little bit about me.
Right, thank you so much for sharing. Now we go back to Hong Kong, and Kinsley, if you would be so kind to introduce yourself.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. So it's a privilege to be invited here and meeting new friends and old friends. Well, the background behind me, this is virtual, of course, and these are not my works too. This is, you can see a little logo here, that's where I work. I am part of the Academy of Visual Arts, Hong Kong Baptist University. So I divide my time between teaching and also other often collaborative creative practices. I like Theodora, also studied at Le Frenois some time ago, and I also had a bachelor degree in new media from Ryerson University. But a lot of the work that I do not really deal with new technologies, but maybe nostalgic areas of technologies. For instance, combining a camera obscura with the Hong Kong tram, or turning the 250 years old weaving machine into a musical instrument, etc. But recently I do more collaborative work, which I will share later today. So it's an honor for me to be here with all of you. Thank you.
Right, thank you so much for sharing. And very interestingly, now our last speaker, we only see the avatar from the researchers who are actually just next door to me here. And Alvaro and Royce, if you please would introduce yourselves or yourself. I don't really know how to address you now in your avatar.
Hi. My name is Roy Sung. I'm currently a PhD candidate at the School of Creative Media, being supervised by Alvaro Casanelli.
Yeah, so I'm supervising myself, as you can see. I'm Alvaro Casanelli. I'm a media artist and a researcher, now associate professor and directing a lab here. And we are working on a lot of things, so related to perception, augmented humans, media art. So my background is in physics, and I end up doing this sort of things by subverting technology somehow. So I'm interested in becoming the media somehow, as you can see. We will explain later a little more. So yeah, I want to keep it short.
Yes, that's perfect. Then we have more time to later on, discuss the work and how it really fits between reality and the digital world.
Make it explode when you finish.
Yeah. So once you settled for a phase, we might want to continue and right now have a look at the videos of each artist and learn a bit more about one specific work from each. So again, we go back to Theodora Barat and start with her video, and this is Synthetic Suburbia.
Okay, sorry. So I did not choose this video because it was an aerial view and the topic is art in the cloud. It's more relevant than that. So I chose it because this video was a good summary of my personal situation and the relationship I had with the pandemic. So usually I film takeoff from places I've been working in. Here it's Newark, New Jersey. I would say I'm kind of like emotionally attached to New Jersey. Indeed, a few years ago, I did a film and installation project about New Jersey. So I can show you a picture of it, just so you can see my work. You see my screen?
Yes, looks good.
Thank you. So it's the film I did, and you see sculpture. I always like to combine film and sculpture, and as you see, it's really like about field research. It's about monuments in New Jersey and suburbia and weird stories and rocks as well, and concrete. And the time when I filmed, I was doing some exhibition in New York. So I did a few trips to New York, and I was very happy to see New Jersey again, to be in the airport, and very moved to film it. And actually, the video I did was in the first trip, and the second trip I had another exhibition. and the video appeared in an installation. I can show you. It's I show you this just a bit for a joke. Sorry, I'm not very fast at showing my screen. Yeah, you see the video is here, and it wasn't like an installation, it was some material of okay, back to the so it appeared that this video is actually my last view of the US territory. The last time I was there, just before the pandemic in August 19. So I just recalled that time, and I think that we were so naive and so innocent at that time. Anyway, during my talk, maybe I will start with more personal point of view and to show how my work changed, my approach changed with the situation. And first, it's a little detail, but I would say that I felt kind of very lucky. It's not the same for all artists. Like, I only had one exhibition canceled, and it's even postponed, not canceled, and I did not lose my job. I did not lose anyone in my family or friends. So yeah, I'm kind of lucky, and I just wanted to add this. As I said, I'm currently working on a PhD taking place in the US territory, and I started it just few months after this video, so just at the same time of the pandemic. You can notice that the field survey is being very central in my approach. It's the basis of my research, and I feel kind of like a bit handicapped, and I'm still feel very handicapped given the fact that European travelers are still banned from the US, and I absolutely don't know where I will be allowed to travel there again. But I try to find some positivity in the situation, and it allowed me to rethink how I could work. I think that all the time I was meeting people and go to exhibition, I took this time to writing and researching, and it allowed me to go much more deeper and to take the time I wanted to take to go deeper in my research. I finally had time to read all the books I had to read, and there were plenty. But also I found a way to have a virtual field trip thanks to a few websites, like of course Google Maps, Wikipedia, but also Cluey. It's another one, and it's specific in the US. And it allowed me to discover several places. There were plans that were very relevant for my research. It helped me to continue to build my work, my research, and not to still be connected with it. And yeah, I had the feeling that I was navigating like I was there, and it was like being a virtual investigator. And it's different for me. It's very new because usually I go in a place and I connect there directly, and this time it was totally virtual. But I'm still very attached to the actual field trip, to the location scouting in real life. But I wouldn't say that it replaced the real trip, not at all. But the connection with the land is still missing. And the indirect information you collect through the experience of it. For me, it's very important to have the experience of it. Mm-hmm. But it's a good substitute, and it allowed me to stay active and connect with my topics, and to have a proper overview and continue to build the reflection. And another thing is that weirdly, again, it's very personal. I never had so much residency since the pandemic. I was in Wesson, an island in Bretagne in Hong Kong. Now I'm in Rome, And I have the feeling, because of the complexity and the weight of the situation, it's like every moment apart from it could become something like almost sacred. I was very amazed with the motivation of people that were organizing the residency or organizing little exhibition in virtual, and artists as well. It's like, it was just very short moment, and we knew that we had to put all our energies to make them happen, and they happened. And yeah, for artists as well, like just for Hong Kong, for example, I agreed to spend 3 weeks in a hotel room, and I would never do this in other situation. And I think that we found some new way to interact, to meet, to create, and to be still connected with culture. I don't know, I was in groups where we shared films and very weird films, and we created some online exhibition. It was like every event movement was becoming extremely precious, and we give all our energy to make it happen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Theodora. It was really interesting, especially also to see the way how you install your work. And I really had this impression it is a very physical experience. And it has a very haptic and sensual approach, working with the light and the images, with the objects. So did your artistic practice move then into, or how did you work with now the restrictions with the digital presentations? I mean, quite a few exhibitions happened only digitally. And I would be curious if you can share a sentence if you had an exhibition which was fully online and how it was perceived.
The thing is, I did not. The only exhibition that was postponed, I don't know yet, but it should be happening in October in Paris. But we had the idea of making it online, but it's the third time that it is postponed. Or maybe if it's cancelled now, maybe it will be online. But I'm also making movies, and this time I didn't had any filming competition, but all the festival, all the festival were doing like online screening, and it was like everything was from home, but it still exists. And I've watched a lot of film festival from my laptop.
Yeah.
And I don't have much experience of online exhibition or festival to share with you. I'm sorry with that, because maybe I work much more in residency and field trip.
Yeah, no, I really had this impression your work feels, you want to see it installed, and it is not the same experience. I mean, sure, in virtual reality, you can include a lot of elements, but it's different. And for your filming, I mean, you really travel to the location and you work there. Did you also consider to moving that online and resourcing images and basically just working from your desk instead of traveling and the actual?
Yeah, I have to do this for my PhD in that is taking place in the US. I absolutely don't know where I will be able to, just allowed to go there. So yeah, I completely changed my way to work. I was supposed to go in residency, but it's not possible. So for the investigation part, I'm completely full in virtual. Use virtual media, like but for a location, like as I said, Google Map, or I just try to navigate just to have a little feeling of the field, of the place, like just to try to create an experience, even if it's not a real one with my body. But at least I see a bit how it is.
Mm. So I should open up to everyone else who is online. Do you have any questions to Theodora about her work? Okay, so I'm just curious about the film we actually saw. How did you film this? How was this actually made?
Oh, very simple. With a cell phone in the flight a flight. So I really like to. It's more a ritual. Actually, I also did this in Hong Kong when I left, and with Anne we had a discussion. Should I show the New Jersey one or the Hong Kong one? I chose the New Jersey one. It's very simple, and the thing is, I liked, but it deal with my research. The film and sculpture I did in New Jersey. So about the suburbia, and there it was like just a grid. You couldn't see the structure of the suburbia, just the grid given by the light, and you had the wing of the plane that was hiding, and we had just a very big dark shape in the middle that was like swallowing the suburbia grid. So it was very relevant for me because it recalled the projects I did in New Jersey and all my questioning about the city structures and everything, and of course the view by night that I'm very fond of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. Good to know. I was looking at it. I was kind of guessing, is this actually a real image or? Yeah,
it's, as I said, I'm a very documentary person.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
So yeah, it was just that moment, and I felt like it was, oh, that's something, I have to film it.
Wonderful. So before we move to the next video, I ask again, is anyone else who would like to know more about...
I have a...
good.
I have a question. I saw the title of your... Oh, sorry, wrong microphone. I saw the title of your project was Learning from New Jersey. I guess it's a reference to the previous documenta, Learning from Athens, and where that was in the context of like a German mega exhibition and in the midst of like a financial kind of war between Greece and Germany, and harking back to the ideals of democracy. So what precisely does one learn from New Jersey? And
I'm not sure we're clear with the reference. It was Learning from Las Vegas.
Okay.
Yeah. It's more about the idea was it's a book that I love, and it's how to, my idea was how to rethink the view, to go in a very to go in the places that has a very bad reputation, like Las Vegas at the time, very like vulgar reputation. New Jersey has a very vulgar reputation in the US. People call it the armpits of New York. So it's very bad. And I don't know if you remember this TV show, Jersey Shore. Anyway, so the idea was to go back there and analyze it as something proper, something interesting. And I work a lot on suburbia and the connection between the main city and the land that is across that suburbia. And the idea was to prove how New Jersey has been the laboratory, the proving ground of modernity. How this modernity shaped the land, and how it had been used to create some invention, to make some experiences, to take to have a lot of quarry and take all the stone to build New York, and how it has been used and kind of sucked and also polluted. There is a lot of army base of the army. There were some nuclear accidents, and at the same time, it's a huge suburbia with people that have their little houses and garden, and yeah.
Interesting.
Do I answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Great, thank you very much. So that was a very good start for our presentations. Now we continue with Kathy's video, please.
都非常之 enjoy 嘅 experience，喺尤其是一個疫情，好耐都冇出過街，透過揾阿 Eva 嘅過程，好似有個 game 嘅形式之外，其實都係一個同自己一個對話嘅一個窗口。
將一個實際 physical 嘅展覽展出嘅場地咧，分散咗去唔同嘅角落，有虛擬啊，有啲實際嘅。喂，嗰件 work 喺邊啊？點樣先揾到㗎？點樣先睇到㗎？咁我覺得呢樣嘢咧係好得意。
你可以喺屋企去參與呢樣嘢 ，end up 又會得到一啲嘢係一個 physical 嘅一個 print。
疫情關係，大家即係呢一年對香港本身呢個地方，其實都深化咗喺呢度好多嘅了解。咁其實透過呢個展覽，真係會走入去社區，同呢個城市更加緊密。
Kathy, I think you can just, yeah, good. Continue and let us know a little bit more about the project.
Okay, can you hear that? Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Forgive me about the very cheesy music in the video because it is actually a promotional video or a video highlights for the documentation of that project. And today I would like to talk about this project, Finding Eva. This is a transmedia story and alternate reality game and experiment, kind of a solution and curatorial strategies to the IFA Everywhere Carnival in 2020. A story about body and mind separate sounds like a cliche sci-fi movie. We could closely relate, and especially during the pandemic times, we've all speak to people we don't know each other online, like what we are doing now, with the names on the corner, with the faces. How could you be sure that they are human beings or robots or just disembodied consciousness? Are they a soul without a body or a person without a soul? If you had experience with telemarketing phone call, then you understand what I mean, person without a soul. And sometimes a chatbot communicate better than a human. So we have been running the IFA Everywhere Carnival since 2016, a biennial event showcasing different new artwork and many art experience. Look at the pictures, then you'll see there are a lot of human interactions, which is no longer possible last year with the social gathering restrictions. But in fact, for the people in Hong Kong, we have already experienced rounds of event cancellations and postponements a year before the virus outbreak. While the carnival was supposed to take place in Central, which is at the very heart of the city, it was impossible to obtain any license from the authorities and stage outdoor events when there was a social unrest. When most of us are looking at the screen for an online solution as a substitution of physical activity, even though we're clear that it cannot be replaced, our team decided to retreat to the original idea and look for other possible possibility. The project titled IFA Everywhere because we want to release moving images and media arts from the institutional venues and expand new audiences. If we cannot stage the show in one location, then why not a little go further to put them in many places, literally everywhere? In the digital age, when we say everywhere, of course, it refers to physical real space, also the virtual worlds. Let's think about our everyday life experience. The line between online and offline is blurring. We constantly travel between the worlds. We order food on an app and the delivery man will just bring your actual food to your doorstep. We want to do the same for the art event, not just home delivery, but the online and offline action should be closely connected and influence each other. So we talked to the artists that we were working with to see if they want to change the idea and to make it more available for that moment. Eventually, the carnival became an exploration of art spaces, injecting new meaning to different physical venues such as shopping malls, mobile experience on public transportation and vehicles, and virtual sites on the cyberspace, including live animation on YouTube and social media games on Instagram. But when things are separate in different places, the dialogue among the artwork would be missing. The curatorial idea becomes fragmented and weak. Also, with the one physical venue means we lost the control on offering audience a certain path to walk through the exhibition, and we don't have suitable lighting or ambience to construct an appropriate atmosphere and create experience. Therefore, we decided to use story and borrow the idea from the alternate reality game to design an interactive journey for the audience. It begins with a viral video on the social media, an AI chatbot, and a 360 interactive mobile app. And then at the end, discover a hidden location in a physical venue. So let's take a look on the short video. I think maybe Charlie, can you share for me? Charlie, are you sharing the video for me?
Charlie is coming.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so basically, this is the video. When you test the number, you will be connected with someone called Eva on WhatsApp. She asks for your help to search for a toothbrush. It is quite rare and then valuable. And then after a couple of conversations, you will be led to download the app and discover the mystery. Through the journey, you will be diverted to the 12 new artwork in different physical and virtual spaces. Like an interactive novel, the narrative is linear. You'll be following a main track and navigate from different perspectives in the 360 world. We hoped to enable the audience to have a first-hand experience and rethink their life with the use of technology throughout the journey. At the end of the story, you will be find that you are not sure if it is someone really called Eva who needs your help, or it is just an internet scam. And a hidden location in the physical world is provided where you can get the actual toothbrush. We had only around 4 months to develop the story and the app from scratch because we didn't want to postpone the show. And it was a real challenge, but we are quite happy that we did that in the year 2020 under our full control and without any unexpected cancellation. And the video that you have just seen viral to over 110,000 views on YouTube and led to around 4,500 app download. So the project title in Chinese is 出口等, meaning see you at the exit or see you at the way out. We consider this as an encouraging message to empower the audience, especially our audience in Hong Kong, also our fellow artists and colleagues during this very difficult time. So that's all for my project introductions, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing this really interesting project. And what I really appreciate is how it connects the different media. So I wonder if that was a conscious decision when you started with it to say, okay, we want to have an app and we want to have a physical object and engage the audience in different ways. So how was that?
Not at all. We commissioned, as I mentioned, we have 12 new artwork, and we commissioned and we invited artists more than a year before the show. At that time, that's before the pandemic, although the social unrest is happening. So we are fully aware that the event schedule may be affected, but we didn't think that the show cannot be executed in a physical space. So, but then we actually try our very best to find some remote district which is less be affected by the social unrest. And I still remember that on the day we confirmed, we got a quite beautiful campsite with a very beautiful sea view. But the pandemic then begins. That's during the Lunar New Year holiday. So we stopped thinking about that for a month. And I finally come up with this new idea during the Easter holiday, when we are actually ordering a lot of food online. And I've began to think, what if we do the same for the art event, and then we talk to each other, consult artists if they would like to change their artwork to something more interesting and more time specific for that particular moment. Because as I think Carnival in a physical space would be a more site specific art event, but at that time we think that maybe we have to look at it from a very different perspective. So this is the great challenge that we are facing, because it wasn't planned in the very beginning, and we didn't know what kind of artwork we will receive during the whole process. So we try to work together in a very integrated mode and get everyone to help and make it happen as kind of a solutions to the show.
Yeah, great. I just look around. Does anyone else has a question for Katie? Yes, Mac. Sorry.
Yes, Katie, you just mentioned the artist. You discussed with the artist in a very short period of time, and before when they plan their artwork, is they have the physical space in the mind, and suddenly they shift their practice. Can you tell us something how they shift and what is the outcome?
Okay, totally. We have 12 artists, and we gave them a choice to see if they would like to shift the idea, or they would like to maintain having it as a physical artwork. If they are doing physical artwork, which we have 4 of them, they're doing the physical one, we will keep it. We will find a appropriate sites for them to showcase the artwork. And we will try the solutions, including finding if it is actually is just one of the curatorial solutions. For that, we have other strategies to guide the audience to see their work in different spaces. But for those who would like to shift the idea from offline to online or combine both, that's quite challenging, and I think we have been challenging the artists to think in different ways. I remember as one of them is the most interesting one is he's architecture. He's an architect, and he designs space. And then I told him we don't have any space anymore, and he felt very frustrated. But at the end, he changed the whole experience on a tram, and he himself, as a performer, to do a sound installation along the tram line. He tried to draw the line of the shore, because the tram in Hong Kong is kind of like the seashore. He wanted to use his own body and the sound installations that he create to recreate a space that he experienced, and hope we can also guide the audience to do the same without some physical object in occupying a space. So this is one very interesting example. And the other one is a filmmaker. She used to do single screen filmmaking, but this time we invited her to make a film installation at the very beginning. But then she turned the whole idea into another mobile experience, also on a vehicle, to do a live cinema experience for the audience. So I think artists are very welcome to, at least those we are working with, to try different possibility and explore different art space. Especially during this time, they are more eager to make it happen than cancel the show or waiting for another postponement. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Katie. In regard to the time, we should move on to the next video. For everyone here in the audience and the other presenters, clearly, if you have questions, feel free to already type them into the chat during the presentation, and raise your real or your virtual hand, and yeah, do let me know. But I hope we still have a bit of time in the end for a general discussion. Good, so then we have Jonathan's video, please. So I think we all look forward to get to know a little bit more about the video, or the actually art project.
If Charlie can share the slides. Just, is she gonna share the slide for me?
Yes, she's coming.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so while we wait, that was a performance in Nantes, actually. That was good. So it was a performance in Nantes. It was kind of just it was just someone's recording on a phone for a minute or so. So it's like a bad neoist joke. It's a response. It was made in response to this idea of art in the cloud. And the slogan at the end of the video, "No internet, no art," comes from the title of a collection of essays that some of you might know, Lunch Bites anthology from 2015, that was kind of surveying media art in relation to its dependencies on the internet and the consequences of that, and also what this means for what was then talked about as post-internet art, the idea of this immersive and interactive art that's supposed to move smoothly between the virtual or the online and the physical, just as we've just seen with, forgotten your name, the previous person who just presented this idea of connecting seamlessly between the virtual and the physical. So it's kind of coming with the promise of something for the art market as well, in presenting various online experiences or habitats. Can we have the second slide, please? Next slide. Yeah. So the video is the only documentation for what I'd call a code brute performance, one type of output I make that returns code, or how code is executed, if you like, to the electrochemical and material substrates that it's run on. And so I always interrogate those material dependencies that lie behind the terminal. But really it's a bad recursive joke on how I do my work, really, because of course I'm dependent on all these things such as the internet. Next slide, please. So some of my work is like a poor homage to the filmmaker Harun Farokhi. Farokhi was a German filmmaker who was famous for analyzing the powers both in and behind the image. This is a famous early work called An Image, where it's like a 23-minute documentary on pornography. So it's about all the apparatus that goes to make pornography. So he's always looking beyond the image to examine it, excavate the means of its construction. Of course, his later work was very much about the Iraq War. Next slide, please. So in the same way, if we're now talking about being at the edge of reality, then the kind of brutalism, what I'll call a code brutalism, I enjoy emphasizes both the materiality and contingency of any constructed form, whether an image, a thing, or an event, or an environment. And I look to amplify the absences of the material, so those absences away from the presented image or the presented thing, to see what bringing them forward, if you like, to use a software term, bringing them forward may afford the experience or something. So in the image behind me, my virtual screen, Elkas pointed out the kind of stoniness of the computer, but also in the image behind me are the two little goblins peeking out from the trees. So I'm also interested in these kind of speculative narratives and speculative or phenomena or epiphenomena that I can create using these kind of extended forays into technology. Next slide, please. So online technologies incorporate a materialism that includes both solids and non-solids, from niche materials to electromagnetic frequencies. Online activity like computation in all its forms invokes the geology of media, involving rocks, minerals, power and energy, and all the labor used to extract and utilize these material realities that precede any form of media. In fact, some of this work here, so you have in the bottom image, you have these computers that was part of a large installation called the Crystal World, which was looking at how you diffract ways of analyzing computation. And then the upper right image is an image from another large event called Real Code that took place in a festival in Norway. And it was a social software experiment where people made constructivist kind of networks on a small scale. I won't go into that. But so what I'm interested in is looking behind any kind of technological configuration, especially when it's taken to be somehow emancipatory or it's socially beneficial. So there's a positivism comes out of MIT all the time along these lines, or where media is described in metaphors as being interactive or immersive, as these descriptions can often obscure the reality of their being. I would say there is always a continuum between the physical materiality of any media and the information that the media carries. So online, immersion in online, being in online events at the moment is no different. That continuum isn't disrupted. We have to be careful about the metaphors that are used, because they often are used to implicitly frame interests in any technological discourse. So online media, one extrusion of these kinds of technological and material assemblages, involving not only just humans as senders and receivers, but also non-human extensions into other non-human materials, as well as in humans in endless permutations, some more temporary than others. So media in this wider sense continue to structure all of the relationships between these entities, including our imaginations. We're little goblins too. We can be goblins if we want to be. But importantly, it also impacts our own labor and the labor of others, of course, as well as the planet. I mean, next, as we'll show in this slide, next slide, yes, this slide here. So I'm coming to the end. So where we have, layers of abstraction from 1984. So where computer scientists have talked about the layers or hierarchies of abstraction from the level of the circuit board to, say, the aircraft simulator, as Richard Feynman once did in 1984, or higher into the social and legal layers of abstraction around social or legal kind of contract law or something like this, as Matthew Fuller from Goldsmiths has done. We can also invert this hierarchy of layers of abstraction and speculate on those layers down from the circuit board into its materials, deep down into the sweaty earth, as Aristotle described how metals were made. And as I don't know if you saw it, but the first slide referred to it, or the second slide referred to it. So what I would suggest, or what I do anyway, I hope I do, is make these kind of explorations of the resources and infrastructures required for us to use our devices in our increasingly networked lives. So I like to investigate these machines that condition the possibility of an art in the cloud. I think this is necessary work before there is any declaration of enlightenment or creative transformation of our practices. Of course, to explain something in terms of its basic parts or material components doesn't render any other effective properties any less real, even if they depend on those materialities. And anyway, in a non-trivial sense, talking about a hardcore geology of media would need to embrace a kind of scientific naturalism that reduces objects to a fairly kind of shallow set of human accessible properties. But nonetheless, the minerals and materials of our servers and computers, the energy expended, the power used, are all inseparable from those signals and abstracted symbols and meanings presented. So I don't think their being, those minerals and materials, their being doesn't belong to only one level of, say, hardware, but should be seen as being effective and offering affordances through their investigation far beyond any one layer of abstraction, whether going up or down from the circuit board or towards or away from any immersive environment. So interrogating any technical device can create and reveal layers of power that can help redefine the social relations and meanings that are produced around it. If what's on the monitor or in the headset is exclusively foregrounded, then there is only a more limited view of what online content is or can mean. But if multiple or layered interrogations of online media are executed, then many more multivalenced experiences and insights can appear. So I'm reading from script because I get lost quite often. So for me, being at the edge of reality doesn't mean privileging one layer of contemporary reality over another. There are greater or lesser capacities to reveal or to produce the kind of explicit or latent at different kinds of levels or scales. I think it would be difficult to make an argument that any one level is preeminent, but what my work has been about is highlighting some of those absences in some of the accounts and amplify the richness that can accrue as experience and understanding through such an approach. Final slide, please. Last slide. Thank you. That was all. This is a basic logic gate using RAIN to compute. Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for sharing this quite intense insight to your work. And I open up right away to the other artists and the audience in regard to the time. If you have any questions. I thought in regard to the installation itself, it kind of relates to Theodora's work, that it really needs the physical space to experience. But at the same time, you said at some point, I don't mind being online. And I thought, oh, wow, looking at your work.
No, I don't know if I did. Did I say that?
Yes, look at your script.
I'll have to look at my script. Yeah, no, it's like interrogating how you're online. So I did another project where I used so I was in a project, part of a festival, and there were groups of us with props, and one of the props was an old piece of the undersea cables through which we still get the internet. So Australia is connected by a large cable running from Brisbane towards, I can't remember where it goes to, but up towards Japan. And just as the UK is connected, those sea cables still take signals. So we chopped a bit off one and ran the internet on a local network using an old cable, an old communications cable, telegraph. So that's what I mean. I always step back. The video is actually using a principle of telegraphic communication from the 19th century. So the Earth literally was the Earth, and a single wire went across the US. Single strand wires carried the signal. So I just inverted it and put the signal, used the Earth as the signal and a wire as the Earth. So it's just playing with these different kind of earlier forms of technology to say something about the present forms, or to point out the chains of dependencies that we always encounter. So the idea that Katie connects the online to the city in Hong Kong is, I think we're always connected like that. We're always connected to the Earth, and the more we understand that, the more we know how much we're endangering the Earth. I mean, I don't want to go on too much about that, but that we treat the Earth as a planetary laboratory a lot of the time, since the atomic era, since 1945, with the atomic bombs, especially. I think that was when we treated the Earth as a planet, as a laboratory, whereas before we hadn't had scaled it up enough to do that. I think I was getting buzzed.
Yes,
someone.
I think the time is up. I would be really curious to see your studio, the way how you work, and I imagine it quite like an interesting laboratory.
Messy.
But we possibly can talk about this later in the discussion, how you all basically have your studio practice.
Thanks, everyone.
But yeah, thank you, Jonathan, for sharing. And we should now continue with Alexei's video, please.
我記得舊時阿婆去天台晾衫嘅時候，佢會特登着得靚啲，因為佢想嗰啲坐喺飛機裏邊嘅人望落嚟嘅時候，佢唔會失禮佢哋。間唔中，我會將自己掛喺條晾衫竹上面搖下搖下。有次我問佢點解介意人哋點睇，橫掂我哋啲底衫褲同埋舊毛巾都俾人睇晒啦。佢冇答我，佢淨係話總有一日我會大個，條晾衫竹會撐唔起我。有啲時候我會諗，其實自己係咪有啲似佢？打扮得靚啲，只不過係俾啲陌生人睇。咁冇人睇嘅時候呢？
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. See it? Cool. So Kowloon Forest is a VR film that we made in Hong Kong, and it's essentially a series of character portraits. So it's this journey through the private lives of these 5 different strangers in Hong Kong, and we wanted to make something that was really specific to VR. So that video that we just saw is sort of an extended trailer, right? It's obviously not the VR, but we wanted to make something which is specific to the medium of VR and only works in VR. So it's a film which brings its audiences to these extremely personal spaces of the protagonists. In contrast, I think a lot of VR places us in huge environments, like, oh, we're in space or we're in the ocean, or whatever. This hopefully is a new sensation of being extremely close to people during these moments of intimacy, moments of privacy. And what I want to talk about in this presentation, in the subject of art in the cloud, is not just how the film itself as a medium is virtual reality, but how perhaps in its production, the film is also quite virtual. And what I mean by that is that each scene is actually a construct of 3 different things. So each scene is, we have a setting that is shot on location in Hong Kong. We have, that's number 1. We have number 2, we have a setting that is shot on a studio with the actor or actors. And number 3, we have a computer generated set, so digital set. So this is a video that is about that. Yeah. For example, here, you see this is a real facade of where I live in Shamshuipo, and the cage structures are added and the airplanes added, you know, as a sort of historic reference, you know. Those who don't know, this is what a 360 looks unwrapped. So it's kind of 360 panorama. And there's also kind of researching a lot of detail into the props, and you know, some props are real from, for example, these are the real childhood photos from the actress. This is kind of another on location shot. This is built in the studio. This is CG. And everything is composited together. So what I find interesting about this way of working, and I think it comes from the fact that my background professionally is as a visual effects artist, so this is kind of what I would do, you know, as my job, right? Creating these hybrid spaces, which are not, you know, not entirely physical, but not entirely digital either. And I think that's a really interesting way of thinking, because you can already plan that a space would not be limited to, oh, what we can get in camera or what we can get, you know, doing CG. It's kind of everything. And you would choose that decision not even technically, but narratively, like, oh, does it make sense to have this as a real location? Does it make sense to have this, you know, as like somewhere we can have a person, etc. Sorry. And there's obviously a lot of kind of design and narrative moments here that, you know, it's a quick presentation. I don't have much time to go into them, but it's obviously a huge level kind of concept-wise, or, you know, both my own kind of interest. For example, this scene is based on Chongqing mansions. It's where I lived when I first came to Hong Kong, maybe like 7 years ago. And the internet cafe is based on a real internet cafe. And the actor who plays the astrologer, he's a real spiritual teacher from India. So kind of what he's doing is his real profession. And the final thing I just want to show is how this film was screened. So we say, you know, VR is, you know, it's ephemeral. We kind of put on a headset and you're in that world, and that's all well and good. But there's a hardware limitations, limitation of accessibility. Who has a headset? Who can see it? So that's kind of what I think is interesting. When we premiered this at Osage Gallery, we had kind of a solo show just for this film, and the idea was that I wanted to be installation based because I assume most people don't have a VR headset. So it was important for me to have a show people could come, and for many people it was their first VR. You know, it's just cool. It's like some high school kids seeing it on the rooftop. We also then went to China. It's in Shanghai with Naunus. But then obviously COVID happened and film festivals went online. This is Vancouver Film Festival, and it was distributed through online platforms, you know. And this is a VR theater in Taiwan. This is in COVID, you can see during the masks. So they were kind of, that was before he had a spike. And finally, it ended up on the Oculus platform. So I hope our kind of aim was that we covered a lot of different possibilities to experience, introduce audiences to VR, both from established users such as here to people perhaps in the gallery context, which might have seen VR for the first time in their life. So I guess my kind of final comment is, when you talk about these things being in the cloud, what is the infrastructure that's required to access that cloud? And that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. And I really appreciate how you kind of showed the background in your presentation, what was real and what was actually CG. I mean, that is a big issue with working with 360 video. You see everything and all around. And I think that was quite impressive to see behind the scene. And as long as I don't see any hand raise yet or any, there is already one. Good. Jonathan, please.
Hi, Alexi. Speaking from the preservation point of view, I know in terms of preservation in art galleries, VR is now starting to happen. There's at Tate London, there's a VR project to preserve these works. And one of the problems when I interviewed the guys doing it is the early days of VR had so many formats that are very difficult to crack, and they don't speak to each other. I was just curious about if you were aware of that problem and you're aware of the preservation of your own work going forward. I know it's a bit off.
You mean formats in terms of different VR platforms having their proprietary sort of thing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
I think that definitely is. I mean, I think it's still an issue, just maybe by sort of survival of the fittest. A lot of things are dying out, and there's like this kind of like maybe Oculus is left as the big kind of VR player. I also think for that reason, because different types of VR, there's what's called 6DoF, which is like 6 degrees of freedom, where you can walk around and look around. And then there's 3DoF, which is you don't move, so you don't walk, but you can look around. So just a 360 film. And that's what this is. So it's not a fully interactive like game engine VR. It's just a 3 degrees of freedom, which is just a 360 degree film. And that was part of that question of a format, because that's more universal, I think. Like in the worst case scenario, someone can watch that on their phone, just sort of panning around. So that was a conscious decision, because I think we could have done something which maybe had a higher, let's say, interaction possibility, but then that would lock us into some sort of format, exactly what you're saying. And then we might get to a point, you know, in, I don't know, in a couple of years where, oh, there's no headset that can play this. Whereas in the time we've made this, there's been like maybe 3 Oculus headsets that have come out, and we can just update it to play on them, and that's fine. So I think that was a conscious decision to not go for the absolute most complex tech, but to prioritize sort of accessibility and reaching audiences. Yeah. If that answers your question. So.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I'm actually curious about your production team.
Mm-hmm.
With how many people you worked, and in the actual production and then the post-production as well, and how long it actually took to create this movie.
good question. It's kind of on and off. So just to kind of contextualize, this was my sort of personal project. So it's like an independent film I'm doing. So for my main kind of work, I teach a film program and also work in doing visual effects for other people, right? So it kind of in free time from not doing other commercial film work, I would do my own directorial work, you know. So there wasn't, I think maybe it took, let's say 2 years to do, but it was on and off. It's not like a 2-year block. It's like, oh, maybe I work for a month, then I'm doing something else, then I, you know, kind of come back to it later. So over that time, regards to the team, we had a big team, I think, on sets. Obviously, as you saw, there's a lot of different actors, right? A lot of different characters, which are very kind of bespoke and specific. For example, the actress, she also my co-writer. So a lot of people kind of doubled up doing a lot of stuff because it's still kind of an independent thing. Post-production was me and another guy. It's mainly me because that is my background, doing visual effects. So it's not that, it's maybe complex when you see it that way, but essentially it's the same technique. You know, you shoot this, you do the 3D part, and it comes together. So it was just time, I think, because those skills are what I'm doing kind of in my commercial work as well. Yeah, so there is a credit list, I think, in the trailer. I can link to it later, but a lot of the main bulk of people were from either the live action in camera or just concept wise, you know, people helped me write it and like conceptually and that kind of stuff, not so much the post-production.
Yeah. Oh, I just can say it's a really impressive result. Having worked in with 360 video myself, I think it's quite stunning. Well, on that note, we should continue on our timeline and actually look at the video from Kingsley right now.
So, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So this is Kingsley, and the video we have just seen, it's not actually my work. It's a work that I was a creative director of. It's a collaborative work and featuring around 9 artists, original work in AR. The context of the project is it's from a grant from the Hong Kong Art Development Council called Art Go Digital. So during the pandemic, the ADC, the council, released grants for art practitioners with mainly two objectives. One is that quite a lot of practitioners do not have work during the pandemic, so this is to create employment. So hence this, for this project, I had the privilege to invite artists to take part so they get paid. And the second objective is that like in many places around the world, when we're in lockdown, how can we have accessibility to the arts? And that's kind of the the question and how to mobilize technologies to enhance this process. And as you see in the topic, the title of the project, Letting Go, is part of a project we call Letting Go Carry On. So in Hong Kong, much has happened and is happening, and also, of course, with the pandemic. So a lot of things are going on, and how do we gain kind of resilience and to gain some kind of empowerment through some kind of art participation? It's something that we try to ask ourselves. So with each of the projects, it's to kind of touch face on an aspect of letting go. Some it's more serious than the others. Some it's about making choices. For instance, the left top hand corner Precious. When you open the AR, there are all kinds of words that pop out. So as a participant, you get to play a little game and see what is the most important. So when you click on the word, it will disappear. And so do you choose about freedom, or do you choose about money, or do you choose from anything else? So how do you kind of let go of things that's not necessarily so important to you? There are also others which is more serious. For example, the bottom right-hand corner, when they left, this young artist lost a number of his family members just recently, and so how to cope with loss and acceptance. So here in the AR, he has kept pictures of the moments when the family member left, and he's a Christian, so going to heaven. So in the AR, we can see these skies kind of just emerging and just living off and dissipated in the pictures. And he also invite other people to submit their pictures of the sky, so people can also have a kind of sharing platform for that. So this is one attempt of how we well, of course, we try to answer the brief, and that's why hence this project. But we are also trying to not like using foreground very complicated technologies. What we have actually just used is the Apple Reality Composer, which is very easy to use and learn. So another aspect of the project is that we have invited all these artists. They are visual artists who had, many of them do not have much experience with this AR space or 3D space. They work in more traditional media, but through this project, we empower them to learn these software packages. So we devote the funding and the resource more in the learning scheme, as opposed to getting like a programmer to help us to do all the back end stuff. So that is also why some of the interactions it seems to be very basic. We try to interrogate like the media itself and what it can do with its limitations, but keeping it very, very simple. Another project I can talk about, it's not so much in the virtual space, but it was sort of during the pandemic. So we had to work with performers who we sort of beamed them into the Hong Kong space. So we have the privilege to work with Theatre of Voices from Denmark, and together with the Hong Kong Student Choirs, and also together with many collaborators, as you can see. And my role for this project is an artistic director for visual, and we have Eugene Bergman as the artistic director for music. And I can play well, we also have made a 360 video online, and everything is archived on the website. And we, during the event, it was not a straight lockdown at that moment. So we could have smaller groups of audience moving through the space, one after, like section by section. So we could still get a couple of hundred people to see the work. Not a lot, but as much as we can do. So I can show you a short clip. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for giving an insight into your work. And I first have a look again if we have any questions in the audience and from the other artists. I really appreciate about Kinsley's work is the narrative behind and also the very poetic and atmospheric approach to it. So I'm a great admirer of your, I think it's 25 minutes older, the Camera Obscura tram, which was going through Hong Kong. And we do have a question here from Jade. She's asking, your previous works are more about physical space or tangible machines such as deluge work, the tram Camera Obscura, which I just mentioned, with storytelling. I was wondering, what's your personal discovery from working with AR and online exhibition situation?
Yeah, so thank you, Kat, and thank you, Jade, for the question. Yeah, so as you mentioned, I love working with physical space and site specificity. So when we are thinking of the AR project, we also want to focus more on this mixed reality component. So for instance, one of the artist's work is it's called Sundown, and she has archived many people's words of sunsets, and for this AR activity, she invites people to actually go to a sunset moment and turn on the AR. And so when you see the sun's setting, there are all these words that's coming out, which are collections of sunset moments from other people, and so on and so forth. So for that, I think what's interesting is the participants using the AR will have the liberty to find a site-specific context to host the AR work, and that's quite exciting too.
Mm-hmm.
Does it answer your question, Jade?
Yeah, well, I believe it answers. I keep asking in the round if someone else has direct questions to Kinsley about his the specific work he showed in the video, or other works by him. So I would be very curious. What is your next plan, your next approach now, as we're kind of really living in this? We can go outside, but still we can't connect to the outside world. Basically, without being digital, we can't travel. People can't come here. So
yeah,
are you in some ways planning to include this in your one of your next projects?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, and yeah, I'm supposed to also do a residency soon, but I'm quite nervous about the 21 days of quarantine coming back to Hong Kong, and so yeah, I'm not so sure if I can answer your questions, but it's yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is really challenging, and going for a residency, it has something quite surreal in these days. But I can tell you, the 21 days quarantine can actually be very productive and turn into an interesting artwork. So I think for us, it is not such a big deal being stuck in a hotel room. We really can still continue with creative work. Yeah, that was a bit beyond the actual questions. So it does not look like anyone else raises the hand. Then in regard to the time, I would recommend to go right away to Roy's and Alvaro's video.
Out with the lost airfield RP5, the central problem of overfitting in machine learning, which the Gov believed they had solved with the wide-scale implementation of the master algorithm returns when the tipping point of data added reaches 1 billion to the power of a trillion terabytes. Overgrading produces the effect of drawing patterns where none exist when data sets are too large and the algorithm is computationally reliably trained to recognize the threat of ethics information. Terrorist facial found myself in Sham, collecting culture board, copper and lithium. We analyzed Tang's situation with the information we had and escaped the heat in the shade of alleyways. Surviving IFIE the problem. The autonomous distributed military city that cannot vision augmentation set to manage shared all the resources. Given psychedelic, we survived as the population dies nation. We survive as the axe burns.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
So I will speak of me as I, but in fact, you really don't know exactly who's talking because we are two people in one. I will just make a brief introduction into that. Oh, sorry, I have like some return of myself. Why we are doing this? So this subject about the edge of reality is very much in line to the kind of research I'm doing, and Royce too, which is this idea that technology somehow is more than a medium, a tool to express something between humans, but we are of course fusing with it, right? Then to somehow like link this idea with the work of the other artist, I just cannot but think that we are all performing here, right? So there has been this question about is this online media platform in which we can really present our work? And I will answer that in fact, this online space is actually not really a space where we can actually put our work, a work that should live somewhere else, but is our work. So maybe we are sort of retreating into this transitional space, in a space that is not real or is somewhere in between to people, in between the cracks of reality, to put it in a very poetic way, which means what maybe Theodora was saying, you know, I mean, at least is what I see when I was looking at this film of the reality or the earth from a plane. So this non-linear, as Deleuze will put it, or this idea Alexis also was talking about, the infrastructure that actually make this space of expression possible. In fact, we may live in this sort of scaffold, this new reality that is made with parts that actually don't have control, right? They're coming from the building blocks that are made all around the world, you know, software like what we are using or what we are actually here proposing, right? And then since we are all performers, we are actors somehow that behind some curtain, of course, this brings the problem that Kati was talking about, identity. So who we are. So if we think about all these things put up together, well, one may really conclude that what we are becoming as artists or researchers is not necessarily something, I mean, we're not necessarily the center. Somehow we are tools for the creation of that space. So this person that you see here, is it really a representation of myself, or is someone else and I'm just helping this character talk? So you can imagine, for instance, that could be the future of communication, in which we don't really care who's talking. The important thing are the ideas that are somehow facilitated by this device. So, now I'm supposed to be Royce. So imagine one day, you know, have only one avatar that represent the opinion of the whole Earth. Everybody's talking, and then that's what you see. You see this performance. You don't see a person. So, and then just to conclude, and I would like now Royce, because this is me, to explain a little about the work and the aesthetics and all the reference that you saw in the video. I want to conclude with this, that for making this sort of software, sort of interface, you are also adding a layer that is the AI, and all this emotion that you're seeing here is not something that I'm actually controlling. It's an interpretation by the machine. When I speak, this is how it should move. And then, you know the autocorrect, and in writing, you will propose the ways that you should be writing. Well, then maybe that's also what will happen. This sort of avatar will be a live autocorrect for our everyday life. We have, and then we will have the capacity to modify this filter, the existential filter, as we want, like we do in a snapshot or something like that. Just a word about me, because and the introduction was brief on purpose. So I'm doing research on human-computer interfaces, on media art, perception, always based on first principles, mostly brought from my experience on my background in actual physics and engineering, so plasma physics. So for me, it's very important, the physical world. You can see the videos there. I try to make the physical world magical somehow, using principles inspired by biology. I know also, like, I'm fascinated by the ideas how much information we have out there, and how to try to present that to our brains that has this limited capacity, limited bandwidth. That's another word you saw there, in which I'm manipulating space and time. So I'm trying to use all this technology that is first a tool to, can you hear me? Yeah. So first a tool to represent, to do something, and then I discovered that this tool actually changes radically the way I see the world. So it's no longer a tool, it's modifying myself. And with that, I will just transform myself into Royce.
You already are me.
All right.
You've been speaking through me but we will just cleanse the palette.
I'm you. No. Okay.
All right. So just to ground this conversation a bit more in reality. So my name is Royce Ng. I'm originally from Australia, from Melbourne as well. But I've been in Asia for the past 10 years and based in Hong Kong for the past 8 years. So just to explain the context of the 1 minute preview of the work you saw at the beginning, I was commissioned by several theaters and festivals to make a performance in around 2019, and I was going to develop a visual art, a work I'd created in a visual arts context called the Master Algorithm into a theatrical performance, and that piece was basically about it was speculative scenarios for the development of technology in China if this in the midst of a kind of trade and technological war between the West and the East, if there was a kind of technological evolutionary divergence between China and the West, and how they would these technological ecologies would evolve. And it was based on two little facts. One is that Xi Jinping, the president of China, in 2019 gave his New Year's speech, and on the bookshelf behind him, he had a copy of a book called The Master Algorithm by Pedro Domingo, which was basically it's a book, quite high level kind of computer science book about the possibilities of creating a AI algorithm which would be all-knowing and all-seeing. And the fact that the president of China has this book, whether he's read it or not, is position behind him shows that it's a high priority for the government. And China also released the first white paper on AI in 2017, the first country in the world to do so. And then the other part of the kind of little factoid which piqued my curiosity was that in 2019, Xinhua news agency in China released the first AI newsreader. So they synthesized a real newsreader, his personality and appearance and everything. And then he was able to broadcast 24 hours a day, and you could just feed in AI synthesized speech into him. So I created the work master algorithm, which maybe you can, if I walk over to this video here. So we're just gonna have to let it loop through, but I'll tell you when it shows up. So I created this work, the master algorithm, which is essentially a hologram conjuration of Qiu Hao, this AI newsreader who was being fed these speculative sci-fi scenarios I'd written about possible technological divergences in the future. But then to develop this into a performance, but then the pandemic hit, and also we were kind of engulfed in this political situation in Hong Kong. And so the first thing was it didn't seem feasible to do work about Chinese technology on this kind of broad public kind of international scale. And secondly, suddenly I was trapped in Hong Kong, and how could I actually do a theatrical performance? So eventually I came to the kind of solution was, okay, at the very beginning, in the beginning of 2020, I decided, fuck it, I'm not going to travel. I'm not going to presume that everything's going to resume to normal. So I'm going to do a completely telepresent remote performance. And the second part was that I would feed elements of the master algorithm work into this new performance, but I would actually make telepresence the topic of the work itself, because I had seen all these kind of performances in 2020 by various performers and theater makers, and how they were trying to deal with these constraints, and saw a lot of Zoom performances and pre-recordings. And I thought, well, rather than resist this constraint, I would make it the topic of the work. And also these glitches, like we're talking kind of that happen all the time, these internet kind of fade outs and everything, how they are kind of materiality of this medium, if telepresence is the medium that we're working with right now. So the performance premiered last month in Zurich, and it involved me 3D printing my face and then creating this simulation of myself and projecting it onto the face of a real performer, an actress in a theater. And I was speaking through this actress, she was a kind of host for my persona, my presence. The performance was called Presence. And so this system is like a precursor to the actual real physical offline performance in a theater. So there was a preview in Hamburg, one of the co-producers of the piece, in June, and they asked for some kind of online content. So I created this kind of a model of the theater and created a model of myself, and used this Qiu Hao kind of exoskeleton that I'd used in the master algorithm, but inserted my own face. And I also synthesized my own speech using AI as well. So that's what you saw in the trailer for the work. And so since then, it's been quite useful to use this system actually to conduct like Zoom talks as like this one right now. And is there anything else?
Nothing.
No.
That's great, right?
I think we could open up
to
to
my
questions.
opinion.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I think you used quite a bit of your discussion time already up. And I think we have, first of all, I need to apologize to everyone. It looks like we need to overrun a little bit to come to a proper ending. But we still have 2 minutes for questions to Royce and Alvaro, or Alvarois, as they're calling themselves here on Zoom so nicely. So we do have a question from Eugenia Kim, a question for both Alvarois and Alexei. Both works involve a lot of CG graphics, but one is more surreal, glitchy, while the other is more realistic. In the future, do you foresee one approach becoming more popular than the other for VR works? Is one approach more effective for creating a sense of immersion? What about ethical concerns and accessibility, both cultural and technical? Just for your interest, this question is inspired by today's article on VR in PC Gamer. So maybe both or all three of you can respond to this. And I think it's a good idea to open already for the questions to everyone. So it would be great to get your feedback.
You want to go first, Alexei?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was actually thinking about this when I saw your project. I think in regards to aesthetic, I mean, it kind of changes. I think now, definitely, we sort of reach a point where photoreal aesthetics are possible and quite accessible. And it's no longer sort of a goal, you know, for a lot of work. Because I think before, when CG couldn't do photoreal, let's say 10 years ago, that was always a sort of gold standard. Now we have that in many ways. Like you can do digital humans, you know, and you see like when they made like Schwarzenegger, you know, for the new Terminator digitally, everything's possible now. So now I think more, as you call, glitchy or just say more stylized representations are becoming popular again. But then it kind of oscillates. So I think, you know, it's like any trends, they kind of come and go. But I think those trends are connected to possibilities and how accessible they are. You know, like once you can do something, then it sort of sets it free, and you no longer have to chase that. That's kind of my perception of that. Regards to more immersive, I don't necessarily think they are. I don't think immersion depends on being realistic. At least a lot of VR films that I've seen, they can be very, you know, abstract or painterly or stylized, and they still have great immersion, perhaps because of story, because of narrative. You know, and I'm saying that as someone who made like a very hyper real aesthetic film. So I think as long as it's not kind of breaking that realism, like there isn't this sort of uncanny valley, I think the aesthetics can be very different and still create immersion. Yeah, that's my kind of two ideas on those questions.
Yeah, I think I would agree 100% with Alexei. I mean, my other life is as a PhD student of Alvaro, and I'm looking at VR and AR technologies in relation to altered states of consciousness. And so I read a lot of papers on this topic and a lot of the discourse. But yeah, I've kind of come to the similar conclusion that, well, I also come from an art history background, so I grounded in that, you know, mimesis, in the kind of versimilar replication of reality, representation of reality, is kind of one goal of art, which has been kind of superseded. And if you look at the history of you know, modernism and everything, there's this kind of teleological trajectory of like trying to represent reality, but then technologies come in. Once the photography and film is invented, portraiture no longer, like hyper-realistic portraiture doesn't make that much sense anymore. So you have to find a new ontology, a goal for the art. And that's actually what kind of is what at least modernist art was interested in. If you can look at like Clement Greenberg and stuff, and talking about the materiality of the medium and seeing the paint strokes and pure abstraction in painting, I think some of those same arguments can be applied to the new media and technology that we're working with now. And in that VR as itself is a medium in its infancy, an art form in its infancy, and that like in the last few years, as Alexei mentioned, there was this kind of you know, goal to try and create more and more hyper-realistic systems. But I think we're getting to the edge of that, if we haven't already passed it, where we're actually trying to discover the materiality of the medium. What is it actually which makes it art, which what are the affordances, to use a different term, of VR, which can be harnessed by artists and used as an actual material rather than just like, you know, dumb representation of photorealism. Yeah. Over.
Anyone else who would like to respond to this question? So I'm quite curious about the interactivity, how this shifts from the analog physical haptical experience to the virtual world. And how do you, I mean, just directly asking now, you Alvarois, how do you feel in your virtual avatar? I mean, I know you're sitting at the desk with your microphone and your headphones and the camera to record your mouth movement. So how does this feel? How engaged and interactive do you actually feel in your avatar?
That's a really interesting question. We were talking about that when we started this talk. Actually, I will just say one thing, that in a way we feel behind the curtain, as I said. So it's different. It's different to be talking about these subjects through the avatar. I don't know. It's I would say somehow maybe I'm more relaxed, or on the contrary, I'm less in control. So I don't care. Maybe the avatar will start like running. So it's part of as I said, a performance. I'm not really just saying what I think. Somehow I'm directing. Even I have like this voice that's this feedback, and then.
But I could also say on top of that like, whereas I'm like have one hand on the keyboard and one hand on the mouse and operating all these things. I'm so focused on the technology, I can barely focus on conversing and being immersed, embodied in our virtual space where we're actually having this discussion. But at the same time, I'm trying to master the kind of this kind of digital, like these sensory motor contingencies I'm trying to master, and for them to come fluid and invisible to the point where I can actually focus on talking.
Right, exactly. So it's more like an improvisation. So we're trying to talk about this subject at the same time we're performing. And it's probably what we all do all the time, but it made this process more clear. That in fact the ideas are just a justification of our performance somehow, right? Yeah. Content and form, they are mixed in a very interesting way.
Yeah,
you should try it. Actually, that will be idea.
Jonathan, you also have a comment about this, is that right?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say exactly what Roy said, that you know, with headsets, with anything, you're not disengaged. So you can have this kind of, if you believe or if you will yourself into this separation of mind and body, which is obviously comes out of, Descartes onwards, rationalism trajectory into, scientific so-called empiricism and all that, this mind and body split, then yeah, if you can really sustain that or suspend that disbelief that your mind is not engaged with your body, then maybe you can isolate yourself from the real world and not be concerned with the mouse or whatever you're clicking away with. But I would argue that you're never disengaged like that. You're a body in space. You're always a body negotiating space. Sure, the brain is going to be affected by electromagnetism or whatever, because we're in a geomagnetic space. You're moving through, the brain is affected, just as if you take drugs, you're chemically affected. So you're affected by electromagnetism in one sense, or that's an argument you could make. So you're never going to be disengaged when you put that equipment on your head from other affordances that are being offered by the materiality of that machinery, not just the visual imagery. So there's always these interplays. But I wanted to actually really ask a question of both Alva and Royce, maybe Royce more particularly, was this idea of cosmotechnics, whether the ontology or the system world view of a cultural worldview, say of China, is reflected in its relationship with technology or the technology being produced. So this idea of Yu Koi, I said it in the chat, this Vietnamese German philosopher has this idea of cosmotechnics, that there's technologies have different purposes, and when they are mixed from different cultures, they get confused.
I'll just correct you just quickly. Yeah. He's Hong Kong. He's a Hong Kong philosopher. He's a local boy, so I have to give him props.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah, well done. So it's just this idea of, if you think there can be a Chinese technology.
Yeah.
That was the question I really wanted to ask you.
Yeah, I mean, Yuk's actually in the faculty at the School of Creative Media. His office is just behind, like next to ours. He's incredibly influential here. So I think, yeah, I think everyone is, at least in Hong Kong and Asia, and looking at the philosophy of technology is influenced by his thought. And the idea is, all he did, it's quite a simple gesture, but it's often the simple things which are the most powerful. He took the idea of the ontological turn from anthropology and ethnography, that like there are multinaturalisms, that like the way we separate, what we, as in I'm from Australia, I'm from the West, we separate nature and technology. That's actually a contingent worldview developed specifically in Western Europe, and that it's not universal, and that a place like China and its history and its philosophy of technology, cosmology and technology are not separate. Or in other words, religion and technology and spiritualism and technology are not separate in the way they are in the West. And that cosmology was structured even up until like the Enlightenment in the West as a kind of regulatory valve for the development of technology. And that kind of, you know, if you offend, I'm making, it's a bad example, but if you offend the spirits of the forest by like, you know, cutting down all the trees to build your huge empire, then there's going to be a problem with the gods there. But when you remove the gods, then you can do anything you like and destroy nature. And that's kind of the place where Yuk was taking that argument. But I would also, so he's a philosopher, so he's not particularly interested in the practical, political, geopolitical aspects of that. So I would also, I've done a lot of thinking about his thought, and I wonder about a dark cosmotechnics, because of course the philosophy of cosmotechnics of Chinese technology is incredibly, it's a different ontology and could be incredibly emancipatory, but we all know the reality of Chinese technology as it is really existing at the moment, that there are quite a lot of dystopian elements. And what if Chinese cosmotechnics, we're living in Chinese cosmotechnics, the Great Wall, Great Firewall of China, the social credit system, surveillance state, it's going to be the most powerful AI kind of political entity because of the amount of data they have access to because of the surveillance. I mean, it's a closed off techno ecology because of Chinese language and because of the firewall. It exists unto itself. And they're developing so many different apps. Like every time I go to Shenzhen, I feel like that's the future, way more than if I go to, especially like somewhere like even like Tokyo or Seoul or anything like that. That feels like we're the cutting edge of the future. So yeah, that would be my thought about that. Maybe Alvaro has something.
Yeah, thank you very much. Does anyone has an urgent, how should I say, demand to reply or to add anything to it? Otherwise, I would like to direct you all to Anne's question and ask, starting with Theodora, what you think if art can be online, can art be in line with online? And you may want to answer just with one sentence or one word, and please remember to turn on your microphone. Sorry, yeah. I'm not finding the right words anymore.
I just turned it on. I forgot actually. I would say that it's very important that we find ways to still be connected with art. And those past 2 years, we found some very creative way to stay connected, and online have helped us a lot. But I think I'm a bit old school, and I still need for me to have the in real life experience of things. So maybe for me it should be like in between lines, maybe still online because it's very interesting way, and also I still need some, to be in contact with it.
Yeah, thank you. What's next? Sorry, Katie, could you answer to the question? Can be really short, one sentence, one word.
Yeah, try to make it short. I agree with that, but I think we don't have a choice in some way because during this time, but I think we have to try to balance between the two, and especially when our everyday life is somehow in line with online already. So I don't see any impossibility for the art. However, not only the artist and curator need to prepare for that, but also the audience need to be educated to get into this new, I don't want to say new normal, but any kind of new practice in this age.
Jonathan, what is your thought about it?
Yeah, it could be online so long as you're in line with all the other ecologies that inform or help create or come together to make that phenomena happen. That's what I'm saying. They're never dependent free. They're always chains of production or materials or labor or cycles of waste and usage, all connected, bound up with it. So I don't think you can divorce yourself from that. Okay.
Thank you. Alexei, what is your thought?
Maybe similar to what Jonathan said, but also similar to what I was trying to get at, is the question if it's online, but what is the physical footprint of that? Both infrastructure, like what is the physical footprint of the internet, but also just interaction-wise. Does that mean if you're holding a phone? Does that mean you're wearing a headset? Does that mean you're staring at a screen? Like there's still a physical component. So we like think of it as kind of being ethereal, but then there's also a very tangible thing. So what is that and how does that change?
Thank you. Kinsley?
Yeah, I think, well, some art can be in line with online, but not all art must be in line with online.
Very nicely said. And Alvaro, what is your thought?
Yeah. Well, as I said, very briefly, of course, I think everybody has a part of the truth. And I was just taking this stance that, in fact, this question can be answered if we think two different ways. First is like being online, it's a platform for showing art that is supposed to belong to another sphere and existential sphere, physical space, or it's really a medium and it's actually impossible to not do art by using it, to not do expressing something different. I mean, we always have this filter, right? So yeah, is there something that is really a platform to show some art that is disembodied, because it's in a way, I mean, to paraphrase a little, what's the name? I can't see. Anyway, yeah, so that's my answer. It's not really an answer. It depends on what you call this art piece. Can it be disconnected to the way of presenting it? So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you all very much. I think that, yeah.
Wait, maybe Royce needs to say something.
No, I
forgot that you're two.
I agree.
Okay.
That was condensed. Good.
So this is yeah. It blew my mind, all this.
So I would have loved to expand the discussion, but in regard of the time, I thank you all very much for your exciting presentations. And I really hope that I will see physically or online one of your artworks soon again. And hand back to Anne, please.
Yes, my last question is, may I invite you to have a group photo together, including our audience? Please join us and turn your video on, please. Yes, thank you. Keep smiling. Thank you, thank you. And some little reminder, 1 second, that is, so we still, just to remind you, we still have some very interesting program on our website. Please take a little time to go and check our program. And one more thing, that is about tomorrow. We will have a wine party, wine sharing party physically at Osage Gallery in Hong Kong. So please, if you are in Hong Kong, please come and join us. If you are not in Hong Kong, yeah, you're welcome to join us on Zoom too. One but not the least, we will have Garden Hong Kong exhibition. This is the physical exhibition at Osage Gallery from 12th to 17th. So all videos of art in the crowd will be there too. So again, if you are in Hong Kong, please come and to join us. Thank you, and hope to see you tomorrow. And thank you all for your support.
Thank you, Anne.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.